let's continue with my IMDB top 250 list from 2015. So this is the list from, not my list, it's the IMDB list. So it's the users that rate movies, and then IMDB does some mathematical magic trick on the data, and then they get this list. 151, it's Mad Max Fury Road. It's actually really entertaining. It's an action movie, so when an action movie is well made, it's entertaining from start to end. So it doesn't really have those really slow scenes that can drag down a movie. And Mad Max doesn't have these slow scenes. I must say that Mad Max 3 is my favorite one, and then the second one, and then the first one I really hate. I think it's too cheaply made, and it looks cheap, it feels cheap, the sound is bad, so I don't like it. The second one is actually entertaining, but the third one, I was so fascinated when I saw the third one. And then of course you had the fourth one, so I was prepared to be surprised yet again about how he will try, George Miller would try new stuff in this movie, and he certainly did. He did try new stuff, and it's pretty fascinating. I think the pace can be a bit too fast because the camera moves all the time. It never stands still. It moves, scene change, moves again, scene change, moves again. So it's a bit too much movement. It's nice and it's entertaining, but if you just had used a little bit less movement, it would be such a perfect movie. So it's a bit too fast paced at times. And Charlize Theron is amazing in this movie. How to Train Your Dragon, I like it. It's a nice movie. Vikings, but not really Vikings. It's like a caricature of Vikings. But it's a nice little story about this cat-like dragon being trained. So yeah, pretty much the movie name reveals the story. So he trains the dragon. Not one of the best 3D cartoons, and also not actually. And the second one I hated. I thought it was terrible. Bad story and too fast paced. Again, this with scene change and shaky cam and stuff like that. I think it can be found in cartoons in some variety, some form. Cold Hand Luke, prison movie. Pretty slow paced and not much is happening. So it's more like he says conform to life in prison. So he goes there into prison and he tries to make up stories and tries to be exciting for the other prisoners and kind of try to play it cool. But it's not always cool in his life. I think maybe it's based on a real story. I don't know. At least stuff like this happens all the time. Gone with the Wind. That one I really like. Gave it a 9. It's nearly the perfect movie because it has everything. Like, it even has romance that I'm not a fan of, but still, if it's well made like here, then it's good. I don't like simplified romance. It's stupid when a woman and a man fight for 80 minutes and then make up and then become lovers or get married in the last 10 minutes. But this feels like a real romance. This is how many relationships go in real life, not just hating each other and then suddenly becoming a couple. I gave it a 9 instead of a 10. It has colors, it has everything, it looks magnificent. But I got to admit that the slaves in the movie, it's a despicable depiction of slavery. They sing and have a lot of fun while being slaves. So this is really a view on the Civil War from the southern states. So we're kind of like they lost their culture to the evil North, and yeah, it's just not I find it disgusting that they they couldn't even acknowledge that slavery was a bad thing in the movie. I don't know who. Of course, it was made in 33, and they used actually all the color cameras for one of the studio burning scene. They burned down a huge studio to get some scenes for the movie. Used all the color cameras they could find in Hollywood. So yeah, it does feel a bit dated that way, but it's super entertaining. So I gave it 9 anyway because I was entertained. I wasn't entertained by how they depicted slavery, but I was disgusted by that. But I don't know. Fargo, yeah, that's the Coen brothers movie that I like. Again, only one. Joel Coen is here. I think they direct movies together all the time. This one I like because it's a story, and it's a clear story. It starts in a place and goes to a place, and it has a conclusive ending. And also all scenes make some kind of sense story-wise. So if you remove some scenes, then the story will slowly fall apart. And usually in Coen Brothers movies, you have a lot of scenes and a lot of storylines that are just random. It's just macabre and kind of, yeah, it's all over the place. It's kind of craziness in movie, but Fargo has a story, and yeah. Trainspotting, again, this is supposed to be what do you call them? Drug abusers, and yeah, I don't enjoy watching that kind of lifestyle. I don't, and for me it was not entertaining. There was a lot of disgusting scenes to really illustrate this British lifestyle that a lot of British people know is there, but don't really see in the daily life. So they want to. This is kind of a ironic, sarcastic view on that kind of lifestyle that people like, because they want to tell themselves and people around them that they understand this lifestyle, and in reality, it's just it is what it is. It's just drug abusers. Dial M for Murder. Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock yet again. Again, if I was watching this movie when it came out, I'd probably love it a lot, because all his movies have something to do with thrillers and good guys chasing bad guys, and damsels in distress, and beautiful women like Grace Kelly. So, and a lot of murder and shootings and stuff, like action, a bit action, not that much, but for the 50s it was a lot. So intrigue too, but today it doesn't really hold up. A lot of these scenes are kind of look silly, and it's not really that fast paced. And also, I think this Dial M for Murder doesn't have color, so it's black and white yet again, and that's really hurts it a lot, because sometimes when you have slow scenes, I kind of need something to look at, right? Okay, if I have a slow scene, let's say in Lord of the Rings, if the nature is a spectacle, if it really looks amazing, then that's entertainment in itself, right? If it's part of the movie, it's part of showing off the landscape, part of showing off these different colors. So this simple story, not much to it. Incendies. This is the director I like. He was the one making the Blade Runner sequel. Yeah. Denis Villeneuve. I actually like a lot of his movies. I really dislike this movie. Again, beautifully filmed, great cinematography, and but that can also be a bad thing, because for this movie, the story is already slow paced, and it's a drama. So, and you have this slow paced cinematography where the camera is moving slowly, or just filming one scene at a time, and filming one sequence at a time for a long period of time, and that can really drag a movie like this one. For me, the story just didn't do anything for me. I get that it should be deep, it should be drama, it should make you cry, but for me, it just didn't work. The Sixth Sense, I gave it. I don't know why I gave it a 4. I think it was kind of. I think everyone kind of. If you know the ending, there's not that much to it. I don't know if I knew the ending while I saw it the first time, but when the twist came along, it didn't make any goddamn sense. It didn't make no sense at all. I didn't find the twist great or spectacular. And M. Night Shyamalan always does these kind of twist movies, and this one I didn't like because the twist is out of nowhere. People think it's intelligent, people think it's great because wow, I was tricked by this movie and it totally makes sense if I watch it again. Then oh yeah, it's revealed that he is a ghost here, there. But how the fuck don't you see that people around you can't see you? How is that possible? It's not. You can't just have dinner with your wife and not notice that she didn't even see you. It's I don't know what to say. It's just stupid. Into the Wild, I gave it 5, so more than 6 cents, and doesn't make any sense. It's not. Yeah, it's just a stupid story. But Into the Wild, I don't know. It was boring. It's just about. It's again a real story. A guy goes into the wild and dies. And that's actually the real story. There's not much to it. People were fascinated by the story because he's young and he also goes into nature to kind of escape it all, and then he dies. So that's what makes his story fascinating for a lot of people. The fact that he dies. If he just survived and went back again, then no one would know about him. Everyone would just, he would just be a random guy. So you kind of feel that, okay, you escape from society and die. I don't know, maybe people find it interesting. Sean Penn, I find him to be a really, really boring director. Extremely boring director. So I'm not a fan at all. Slow-paced movies. A lot of lingering and a lot of just scenes with discussions and not even discussions, just scenes with dialogues, random dialogues. And these are not dialogues that fit into the story, and they don't progress the story that much. It's more like he's replicating real life. So he tries to replicate something that would happen in real life. It's just like, if you film a dinner conversation, a bit like that. That's some of these kind of things that it tries to replicate. So I don't know what the hell this movie is doing on this list. I don't know. A lot of people love it. I know. It happened one night. I kind of only gave it 5. I don't know. I think I was fairly entertained. It was. Some of these old movies are kind of silly. I think maybe it was too silly and too over the top, too much shouting. A lot of shouting in these old movies. I don't know, maybe the microphones were bad, so they kind of needed to shout. And the speakers were also probably a bit bad in cinemas, so they needed to speak up. Then it's a basic love story. So, okay, we dislike each other and then we fall in love. Boom. So, simple movie. I don't know why I didn't give it a 6. Usually I give these movies a 6. It's random, simple movie. But not much is happening, and it's kind of a silly story because it doesn't feel realistic. Kind of feels like they just randomly fall in love. Boom. A couple. Silly. Yeah, silly all the way. Finding Nemo, one of the best 3D cartoons. So this one is of course a must watch. Monsters Inc. is also one of the best ones. And Pixar had a good run back then. Now they're making Cars and maybe did they make airplanes? I don't know. But they are making a lot of kids movie, selling toys today. Not that much focused on quality as they were used to back in the day. Now they're focused on making products for kids. So I think Finding Nemo was a great movie that also could sell products and toys. Gone Girl, David Fincher. This is David Fincher at his not at his very best, but it's up there, and it's a great movie. The ending is kind of weird. Comes out of nowhere because suddenly you see that Ben Affleck's character is totally insane, but at the end it does make sense because Rosamund Pike's character is completely batshit insane. So huge spoilers all the way through here, but she's completely insane. So it makes sense that her husband is also insane, because why the hell would he date her if he wasn't insane? Wouldn't make sense, right? So it makes sense that they're both insane, but it kind of comes out of nowhere because at the beginning it looks like he's just the regular husband, regular cheating husband. But yeah, it makes sense that he's completely crazy because she is too. So whatever. I don't know if it's realistic. It's realistic if you look at them as psychopaths and suddenly reveals that they are psychopaths out of nowhere. But I think it's like it's what the kids want. Like it's what the kids want, right? Crazy movies. And David Fincher again likes to show the perverse side of humans. He thinks that everyone is perverse and kind of crazy. No Country for Old Men. Again, the Coen brothers. Yeah, we have both directors mentioned here. So I guess they directed it together here. I'm not a big fan. It's really slow paced. Again, they had this crazy ending. That's not an ending, like they do in many movies. Also, some movies have random beginnings. Some movies have random scenes put into them. I'm not a huge fan. For me, it's too slow paced. The Thing, it's a basic horror movie. Again, a lot of horror movies here are extremely basic. So you have a monster chasing people, and then these people trying to escape from the monster, kill the monster. That's how it is. That's what Alien is. That's what The Thing is. And it's creative use of different technologies and creative monster effects, and I like that stuff. Of course I do. But the story is that the monster tries to kill them. So that there's not much to it. If all the people die, then they could have died in an explosion. It would have had the same outcome. No one discovers this monster outside of these small cabins or these small group of people. So what's the point of it being a monster killing them? Could have been cold. The cold could have killed them slowly off, right? That could have been a similar type of movie with the same outcome. John Carpenter, yeah, I like him. Also, of course, Kurt Russell, I really like him as an actor. He's so charismatic. Maron Max, I must admit, it's one of those kind of movies that I didn't even finish watching because it's about depression and loneliness and being an outsider and stuff like that. About an old guy riding with a little girl, so they write letters to each other. It was, it's not just that it's depressing, it's also that it's really slow paced, and it doesn't really have a bigger storyline to it. It's just two characters interacting and not much to it. I really don't understand why people like it. I hated it. Rush, yeah, I get angry just looking at it because it just makes me angry when a movie is that bad that it irritates me. Oh. Yeah, Rush again, real life story again. It's Ron Howard, so it's a real life story made into the movie, and you need to respect his handiwork. When he does his best, he's at the very very top of the best directors, and when he's not at his best, then he's pretty bad. So he can be pretty too basic, too boring a director. But in this movie, he makes an interesting movie about real Formula 1 racing with deaths and destruction and love interests and crazy alcoholic people. And okay, how for example, I can't even remember what they're called, but they are two hugely popular and famous racing drivers. Daniel Brühl, he's the guy. I will just look it up. The guy he's playing is called a rat because he kind of looks like a rat. Niki Lauda. So it says so there, Niki Lauda and James Hunt, Englishman and Austrian or something. He's called a rat by his friends. So the storyline of how he meets his wife is super interesting, because at the start she doesn't like him at all, but then when she discovers that he's famous, she totally falls for him. And that's what I like from movies, that they don't try to make it too Hollywood and too childish. They show the real life how it is, and that's Ron Howard tries to show real life, but he also tries to make it entertaining. And when it works, it works. Let's see, I've already spent a lot of times talking about these movies. Maltese Falcon. Again, not a huge fan. At least the female, Mary Astor, looked a bit old actually, because she's supposed to be a femme fatale character that everyone likes and everyone falls in love with, but she kind of looks old in this movie, and that's not my only problem, of course. She didn't fit the role at all. It was like it was written for another type of woman, another type of actress. But it's also a very basic storyline. Not that many sets, filmed inside, a bit outside, and inside again, in the same type of areas. And John Huston, I like him as a director, great director, also one of my favorites. But for me, this didn't quite work. It was too basic and too simple a story. I don't know, I actually don't know why it works for that many people today, because it's compared to modern thrillers, it just doesn't hold up. Kill Bill Volume 1, I'm confused by these two volumes, because I have sometimes it can be a bit a hard time remembering what movie did what. So what happens in Volume 1 and what happened in Volume 2. It's one movie that he split up into two movies, because otherwise it would be too long a movie. And kind of like a lot of comic book elements about that you take graphic novels, and then when you make a movie out of them, it becomes a bit crazy. This is a bit how this feels like, mixed in with Japanese samurais and stuff like that. I'm not a huge fan, but I liked it. I would also rewatch it, but I think the story is too simple and a bit not that many twists and turns, not that many new exciting things. Life of Brian. This is the one again. Terry Jones. Jesus. What? Monty Python. That's what they're called. I'm not a huge fan of Monty Python. I think they had historically they were significant because they had a lot of intelligent humor, and this is intelligent humor for atheists. So they like these kind of movies, and I actually like it too. I gave it an 8 because I think it's a great, funny depiction of religion, and that's hard to do because first of all, a lot of people will dislike you just for making fun of religion. So a lot of people will attack you just for that. So a lot of big studios would say that they don't want to criticize religion too much, or maybe show the Prophet Muhammad at all, because they fear the critique, right? And in Life of Brian, they made the movie, and they were allowed to make it. So that's what I think is great about it, because it's funny, it's interesting, and it's a real movie. It exists. It was made in 79, but it exists even today, and even today people fear making these kind of movies. So it's great that someone dares to do it, and when it works, it really works. Wages of Fear, found it really boring. I think some of the elements might, some of the settings might look a bit like Mad Max, but the racing is super slow. Everything is slow, and I don't feel the excitement that it's supposed to show. So it's made in 53, so I guess the excitement is there for the movie audience of that type of that age. But for today, no, I don't think it's exciting enough. It's not an interesting ending at all. It also has a remake. I'd rather watch the remake, I think. I haven't seen it yet, but this was just boring. Also Rwanda. Again, this, I know all the movies on the list are criticized at some points, and they're also liked a lot by a lot of people. And Hotel Rwanda, I like it because it is real life. It's actually a true story, and it did happen. Maybe not in exactly that way, but something similar did happen. And you have the Tutsi and Hutu conflict in Rwanda, and it's still an ongoing conflict. It can always escalate, just like Yugoslavia war. It can always escalate because people work together, they function together, but suddenly if some tribe wants to take over some resources, some gold mines and diamond mines, they'll just start killing and take over stuff. So these big leaders can really ruin a country, and especially in Africa, where people don't have a lot of education, have too many kids, not enough money. Brutal movie. What didn't work was actually the cinematography. So the acting works perfectly, but it's filmed like a TV movie. Everything looks like, not the set design. The set design is fine, but it looks really cheap the way it's filmed. It's like someone walked around with the camera and just filmed scenes. It doesn't feel like it's set up and beautifully set up, and like the camera moves through the bus while people walk through the bus, or the camera moves with the people that are running away from stuff. It just films a scene, and then stuff happens, and then the director probably told the camera guy to, okay, walk over there, because now this guy will say something, so you need to film him saying something. But yeah, it does look cheap, but still, it's a good story. It's an entertaining story, so I don't know why people dislike it that much for that. Platoon, I like it. Oliver Stone, also a famous director. Sometimes he hits it out of the ballpark, and sometimes he doesn't. And here he really made a great movie. Again, it's one of these Vietnam movies. They made a lot of movies about Vietnam because, firstly, you have a lot of money in the movie industry at that time, and you have a big war, and it's a thing that a lot of people talk about and a lot of artists write about, because it's a very emotional subject and also historically very significant. But I do think there are a bit too many Vietnam movies. Of course, it's an important war for Americans, but there was also a lot of topics that have not been filmatized yet. So there are a lot of movies that need to be made about real events that really happened, and these events don't have any type of movies. So people need to talk more about other types of wars and wars in other countries, like for example Hotel Rwanda. If we didn't have the Hotel Rwanda movie, then a lot of people wouldn't know about this conflict. and that will be a terrible thing. Of course, we would know about it. I've heard about it. I think everyone has, but I didn't know that much about it. So watching a movie about it kind of makes it real for you. If someone mentions the conflict, I would think, oh yeah, I saw it in Hotel Rwanda. I kind of understand it. The Martian, it's Ridley Scott, so the atmosphere is there, but also because it's a book, I think the story is better structured, and a lot of stuff, exciting stuff, it happens, and a lot of intelligent stuff it happens, because he actually used a real script. So all these intelligent engineers that helped write the book, they made this movie possible. The writing made the movie possible because all the technology is true to real life. It could really happen on Mars, and that's what makes it exciting. Because when Ridley Scott just starts filming without a script or with a rushed script, it doesn't really work. Then the atmosphere works, but everything else doesn't work. The technology looks fake. The people don't interact like real people with the things around them. But what this movie needed to do, I haven't read the book, but of course I've heard about the book, like everyone has. The book, I think, has Matt Damon's pregnant wife at home, so waiting for him. In this movie, no one was really waiting for him. Not even his family was shown. Maybe his parents for like 1 second. I don't know. Maybe I imagine it because it makes movie better in my mind. But I think actually he talks about his parents, but they really needed to add someone, a family member or some friends, childhood friends, sitting and waiting for him at Earth. Just 1 minute scene with that, and you will feel that he strives to not just survive like he did in the movie, but also come back to society. And that would make this movie so much better. It kind of feel a bit empty at times. That's the Ridley Scott movies. They do feel a bit empty. That something is missing, some soul is missing, human connection is missing. But really, it's like he's an artist that's really good at reproducing technology and aliens and atmosphere and stuff like that. So again, this kind of could use a bit more human connection. There will be blood. I'm not a huge fan. It's of course, again, it's true to real life. This is pretty much what happened in the Wild West. So you find oil and a lot of greedy people fight each other. But you could have made this movie about anything. It's an important part of American history, and I think a lot of people like it because of that, because they need to be reminded of that history and they want to see that history in movies. But for me, it was too slow and boring at times, simple too. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, again, true story. Of course, this is not I think they died in their own cabin. I think they shot themselves actually. They sat in the cabin and then I think it was the Mexican police or maybe the American police in Mexico that surrounded their cabin in Mexico, and then they shot themselves before they could be shot. But there was a bit shoot 'em out at the end. Of course, it's hard to be a cowboy style bank robber at the very end of the Indian cowboy Wild West period, because in that period of time you have more police, you have a bigger society, you have bigger cities, everything is well controlled, rich people are controlling everything, and they support the state, and the state helps them create a safe society so they can run a safe business. This was a harder time for bank robbers such as these two. And you will at the end you will get caught because everyone was chasing you because you're destroying the business. So yeah, they were the last big bank robbers of the Wild West. Maybe they are not even from the Wild West because it was just at the end of that period of time. where anything, when you can be an outlaw. You can't anymore. Network. I think one word to describe it, I would say pretentious. This is not how this is not how media works. This is not how I understand how media works. I know a lot about media. I watch the news channel I can watch and read the newspapers I can get my hands on. And this is not how I see media at all. And it's really pretentious. All the dialogues are kind of made out in a Shakespearean way, a theatrical way, you can say it that way, because Shakespeare wrote theater plays. And this is again a lot of emotion, a lot of monologues after monologue after monologue after monologue, and it's supposed to be a deep movie, but I don't see it. But 400 Blows, I know a lot of people really like it. I'm not a fan at all. I found it boring. I found it too basic. It's about a story about a boy that skips school, and it's basically that. I don't know why people find it so exciting. I think a lot of movies, when they are old, they're kind of rated a bit highly because they're old. So it feels like they're part of history. They have some significance just for being old, and they also have a significance because people talk about them. So I don't know. People can talk about a movie for various reasons. Maybe because the movie was free for a period of time. Let's say it wasn't copyrighted for 20 years, so a lot of channels show the movie every Christmas or whatever, and then people started to like it and started to consider it a classic because they saw it again and again. Or maybe 400 Blows had, maybe an actor died, maybe a director just died after the movie or something like that. So stuff like that can really influence ratings and can really influence a movie in it becoming a classic or not. That's just how it is. That's just how human beings are. We are not objective. We are subjective. I try to be objective as much as I can, but I also have a taste in movie. I also have a life that I have lived, and I don't find this movie interesting. And again with Persona, Ingmar Bergman, as I've said before, I'm not a fan. And of course I'm not a fan of this movie either. I don't even think I've watched a single movie of Ingmar Bergman that I liked. And yet again, it does feel like it was a film student project. And not just a random film student project, but kind of a dream scenario of a hipster film student that made his fantasy come to life. So this is what I will call modern art or postmodernism. But it also, I think in this movie he tries to add a lot of psychology into the movie. So he tries to make a deep movie, a deep psychological movie, and this can work. Again, it's just like with philosophical movies, like with Matrix. A lot of people consider it really deep and philosophical. I don't really consider it that deep a movie or that complicated a movie. And especially with when you have a movie that tries to tackle deep psychological issues, of course I'll find a fault in that type of movie because I have studied this area and I have expertise in this field. So when an outsider writes a movie or directs a movie and it feels deep, but it also feels a bit shallow. So it feels deep because it's a shallow depth. He tries to make a deep and intellectual movie, but for me, I know a lot about these kind of issues. I know a lot about mental illnesses and stuff like that. So and it's really, really clear that people who directed and acted in this movie, they are not experts on this field. I'm not saying I'm a super duper expert or super intelligent, but I'm trying to convey a point. And I'm conveying a point that if I wrote a movie about being I don't know, being a garbage man, I probably wouldn't understand how they feel and how they act in day-to-day life. And when you have a director writing or trying to create a movie about a topic he doesn't really know that much about, you again get this silliness. It's like scientists in movies. They can be silly at times because a lot of it is not written by scientists. It's written by outsiders that know a bit about the topic but not a lot. Forget about it. I wouldn't even watch these 3 movies. Stand By Me, again, it's super basic. It's written by I think it's written by this horror movie writer. I'm super bad at names, but yet again, it's about growing up. I think you find his name here. Nah. Forget it. But the guy who wrote The Shining, I think. Stand By Me, simple movie. Kids going on it's not really a journey. They're just going through the landscape and then finding a body of a missing boy. And that's actually the full story. There's not much to it. And it's kind of inspired by real events. I think a lot of people like it because if they grew up in the 50s, I think it was set in the 50s, they see they kind of remember their old childhood while watching it. Touch of Evil. Okay, wow, such a great description. That's the Orson Welles movie. Yeah, I actually like it a lot. It's a great movie. I gave it a 7 because this was the one I talked about earlier, about weird camera angles. So you have a lot of camera shots from the ground up, or from the top down, or from the side, or with camera not being angled perfectly and stuff like that. So really weird camera angles all the time. And when you use it a bit, then the movie becomes more interesting. But when you use it all the time, you overuse it. So the movie becomes kind of broken, disfigured, right? It becomes weird in a way. And that's what's happening with this movie, because it's actually a really interesting movie. I would recommend it. 12 Years a Slave. Maybe it's because it's new that it's on the list, because I think it's a good movie. I liked it. That's why I gave it a 7. But also have a lot of slow scenes in it, so it does stop a bit at some points in time. But it makes sense in the slave movie because you're supposed to feel like it realistic, and you're supposed to feel the suffering when it's a slave movie. So it kind of makes sense in these type of movies. And it's also again a true story, written by the slave that escaped. I think maybe he later. No, forget it. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of slaves couldn't read because you were not allowed to read and write. You probably get the whip or get killed if you try to read and write. So it was totally forbidden for a lot of these slaves, because that's also how you keep them as slaves. If they cannot read about freedom, if they cannot read about deep philosophy, and if they cannot even read the Constitution about the free man, then of course they have less thought about these subjects and these matters. And they also cannot find work anywhere else if they're really stupid. But I don't know why it's on the list, because it's not one of the best movies ever made. It's just a good movie, not much more than that. Princess Bride. What didn't work was sometimes the landscape. You know, you have in these old movies, you painted a lot of the landscape in the back. So if you had a lot of mountains in the back, you would usually film it, or oftentimes you'll film it in a studio, because it's much cheaper and easier than going out to the mountains and filming a scene 10 times just to get it right. So it's easier just to draw these mountains and then put them in the back, or or use a green screen and then insert mountains. So sometimes it doesn't really work because it looks a bit unrealistic. I like Lord of the Rings because they use real mountains, real landscapes, and that looks amazing. But it's still a really good movie that I enjoyed a lot, and it's a kids movie that works. The Grand Budapest Hotel. Like I'm from Soviet Union, so I was born there. So I kind of recognize some of the stuff that's going on here, and this is again trying to depict some of these communist dictatorial and silly stuff that actually went on, but this is not true to real life. So a lot of it is silliness. It's kind of a creative look on these dictatorial states post World War II. Does it work? Not that much. It's interesting, but a lot. I would rather want him to direct a movie about real life, and then use real historical context, and not this really kind of silly notion of real life or true story. A lot of silliness, a lot of colors. Also, one of these movies that kind of changed the screen. So, for example, at some point in time, you have a squared screen because you're only seeing what is in the scene, and then at other points in time, you get the regular 180 screen. I don't know if I can explain it, but it changes. Yeah, the screen changes because the camera work is amazing and the set design is amazing. Everything is set up perfectly. Wes Anderson is again one of these kind of film student directors that tries to control every single little thing about his movie. And a lot of film students, a lot of movie in the industry, people in the industry, they like this kind of stuff because it shows that he controls his handiwork. He knows the craft of movie making in itself. He knows about how to make a scene and how to make it look beautiful. Does he know a lot about creating a great story? Maybe that's not what he actually does. But the movies on the list are movies that are respected by industry people too, because they are rating. They are on the side, and they are rating, and they are on the side in big numbers, and they are also controlling a lot of the narrative. Amores Perros. Let's see. A horrific car accident connects 3 stories. I have seen it. I think I remember it from 2000. Now I remember it. It actually well filmed, well acted movie, but not. I think it's again a bit macabre depiction of real life, yet again, and again it tries to play on your emotions, tries to be extremely emotional, but for me it didn't really work. I can hardly remember it. In the Name of the Father. A lot of people like Daniel Day-Lewis. Again, as you may have noticed about some of my other reviews, I'm not a huge fan of his, and I think in this movie it's one of his worst acting jobs ever, because he's making a movie every 3 years or something like that, but and he tries to prepare for the role. For example, he can break up with his girlfriend and then just spend a year becoming the role, becoming the character. And in this movie, for example, the crying scenes are completely fake. You can totally see they're fake and they're overacted. And that's what happens with some of these big star actors. They try to really act, and sometimes it just doesn't work. And it's a basic movie about the IRA bombings. So again, real life events. And I find the storylines about the bombings interesting, but a lot of the time the movies can be a bit depressing and a bit slow paced and a bit too melodramatic. That's the word. Actually, I should have used the word much more melodramatic. But I liked it. That's why I gave it a 7, because I liked it. I'm just excusing my 7, because usually when a movie should be on the top 250 list, it's because it has an 8 about thereabout. So when I gave a movie a 7 here, it's because I didn't like it as much as most people liked it on this side. And $1 Million Baby, again, it's well acted, well filmed, well directed movie. I think the ending is kind of, as I said before, I don't like blood. I don't like too much. Not that I don't like violence. I find violence in action movies really interesting and spectacular and fascinating. But and boxing fights, I also find that really interesting in movies. But when you have a woman biting her own tongue off, that's a bit too disgusting for me. So again, it's supposed to be this heavy and dramatic ending. And usually when you have Clint Eastwood involved, he's a Republican with a big R, so he's an independent thinker. He thinks that everyone should try to succeed by their own. And that's what all his movies are about, being independent and fighting some big organization, whatever it's the state or big police department or something like that. You're independent, you're fighting, you're surviving, and that's what this movie is also about. Annie Hall. Again, I'm totally disagree with with people that say it's one of the best movies ever made. Totally disagree. If you watch Scrubs is not, I don't think it's inspired by this movie. But again, because this movie is a bit old, people will say that all these new kind of comedies are inspired by Annie Hall. I don't think they are. I think it's just a natural progression of how you make comedies. And in Annie Hall you have Woody Allen making a crazy comedy, and a lot of hipster elements again added to this movie. So a lot of random things are popping up, and these hipsters, I mean rich people in New York, interact with each other, and they have their own problems. They're not poor, so they don't have these kind of problems like in the $1 Million Baby, but they have their own problems about with love and getting in shape and, I don't know, buying a car, whatever, right? Stuff like that. But I think Scrubs did it much better. Also the fourth wall that gets broken all the time, that's again something Scrubs did much better. I don't care if this movie is older than Scrubs. I don't care if it's historically important or not important. I don't care if it was beloved back then. I care about how it holds up today. Is it entertaining to me or is it not? I watch all kind of movies, so I compare it to all movies, and for me it doesn't hold up. Ben-Hur, oh wow, I've spent a lot of time already, but whatever. This is one of the great masterpieces and great cinema classics. Again, it's a great big spectacle. It's fascinating tale, a big tale, and also a lot of weird religious elements to it. For example, again, spoilers as always. At the end, you see God saving his family. They are getting, it's called spedalsk, whatever. They get sick and they get called spedalsk in Danish. They get sick and then they get better at the end. So God saves these rich people from dying. or from being disfigured. Okay, whatever, but why doesn't he save all the rest of the humanity? I don't know. Maybe because they're lead characters, so we are supposed to thank God for saving them. Whatever, they have lived a great life, fantastic life. They were some of the richest people back there. So I don't know. The ending kind of feels out of place, but it's great because it's a movie. It's supposed to be a happy ending, right? Shutter Island. Again, I don't know. Maybe I think sometimes I'm right when I'm reviewing a movie, and when I'm reviewing a script and a storyline. I think sometimes, and my mouth is getting dry. I think sometimes I am right. And when I say this movie appears deeper than it actually is, more intellectual than it actually is, I think I'm right. It's not a bad movie. Again, I rated it 6 because I like it. But it's not one of the best movies ever made. And actually, I was kind of expecting it to be a bit better because it's Scorsese. Sometimes when he really hits the note, he hits the note perfectly. For me, it was too simple a movie. If he had just added a bit more storyline to it, a bit more elements to the movie, I think I will enjoy it much more. But still enjoyable thrill with a twist ending. And that's sometimes when you have these kind of movies. Can I upload long videos on YouTube? I think I can. You have twist endings, and these twist endings are the central element of the movie. So if you didn't have the twist in this movie or The Sixth Sense or whatever, then you wouldn't have a movie because they are made around this twist. They are made for shocking the audience, and again here are surprising the audience. And again, this movie is made this way, and the twist is kind of silly. So Grapes of Wrath, or again, I consider this a trilogy with the Dust Bowl documentary, and then Interstellar. Yeah, I consider that these 3 movies a trilogy. So about documentary about the Dust Bowl, and then this movie about the Dust Bowl actually was not allowed in the Soviet Union because these poor people had cars to drive around the country. They tried to escape the Dust Bowl. They tried to escape the sand in the life, and everything they owned was just destroyed by sand. So they couldn't actually grow anything anymore because people got greedy. They tried to destroy all the trees and all the hills that stopped these dust balls from appearing. And then they drove away from these dust balls and tried to find work. And when you have a deep depression and dust balls and stuff like that, you really have a lot of suffering. So magnificent movie, really great. It's depressing, but it's true to life. And John Ford, one of the greatest, top 5 maybe of all time, maybe top 10 best director of all time. This Wild Tales, again, this one is it's a Spanish movie done right, because they can be a bit too melodramatic at times, I think, for me personally. But this is short stories, and a lot of short stories that are made into, it's not really one long story, it's just a lot of short stories fit together into a movie. And for me it works because a lot of these short stories are really interesting. A lot of them also don't really work. They're still interesting and well made, well filmed, well acted, and look beautiful on screen. I think it's with digital camera this time around, so it really looks beautiful. The picture looks magnificent today with new movies. So for me it works, so I gave it a 7. Because when it doesn't work, it's bad. Hachi, A Dog's Tale, again, super basic story, not much to it. I don't understand why it's on this list. I think it's because it's supposed to be a tear-jerker movie. So it's like a horror movie. If you are scared, then it's a horror movie, and then a lot of people will like it because it has the scary monster element to it. And this is again a tearjerker, and it's supposed to make you cry. And if it makes you cry, then it's a good tearjerker movie in that category. And it does fit that category, but it's extremely basic. Again, based on real life. I don't think the real life was with a Caucasian guy. Pretty sure it was in Japan. So probably only Japanese people. But I think also this movie has been made and remade a lot of times because it's a famous story with this dog having gotten a statue in his home country. Valley of the Wind. Again, this director again. What the hell are people? Now I'm getting irritated. Again, beautiful movie, beautiful animation, really interesting monsters, a lot of interesting new things, beautiful use of colors and stuff like that. Story-wise, no, not much to it. That's what it is. I'm a big sucker for story, so for me it doesn't really work. The Diabolic. Wow, when I look at this, when I just look at this image, I'm totally lost. Can't remember anything about the movie. Made in 55. Yeah. Again, it's made in 55. Why I like it? It has twists like modern movies have. You know, this twist, that kind of central element to the story, and if you remove them, you don't have a movie, because the movie is made because of the twist. First, the people came up with a twist and then told themselves that this was a great twist and super interesting twist that would shock the audience. Now let's make a movie. So that's how I totally imagine this movie was made. Again, not an English movie, and when it works, it works. When it doesn't work, it looks kind of like a TV movie when it's not in English, usually, because a lot of cheap movies are made in non-English language. Yeah, I don't know, it's okay. If you don't watch it, don't watch it. It's totally forgettable, and I think you can only watch it one time, because it has this twist element to it. Also, this story-wise, it's not that interesting. It's also a silly twist. Stalker, a Russian movie. Tarkovsky. I'm not a big fan of his. Again, this is postmodernism again. It's not so much about the story. It's like a bit like the Coen brothers or Wes Anderson. A lot about showing, not telling, and just showing, and not really telling a lot. So this is a lot about showing. A lot of imagery, a lot of people being overly melodramatic, a lot of weird magic suddenly appearing and stuff like that. Jurassic Park, I gave it a 5. I don't think I agree with myself on that 5, because I think I will give it a 6 now. Of course, I don't think it holds up that well, because it's a bit silly, I think, today. Also, it kind of feels like it jumps from scene to scene to scene, and that's again with these big star directors and these people that work with a craftsmanship, with a piece of art, like Steven Spielberg and some of the other guys. I do think they take themselves too seriously at times. They set up all the scenes perfectly, but then what do you do when you go from scene to scene? For example, in the Force Awakens, what do you do when you go from scene to scene? Let's say you have set up these huge set pieces, and the movie costs a lot because everything needs to be done perfectly. But what if this lead actor goes from one scene to another scene? How do you do that? Do you have the human element in the movie, or do you just have a beautiful movie? Steven Spielberg yet again feels like an autistic guy trying to create movies, and he's great at what he does because you need to have understanding for a lot of things to make movies and create movies, but you always have faults as a director, and Steven Spielberg certainly has his faults. He's probably the greatest director of all time, but he certainly has his faults, and when you don't feel that his movie shines, then you really notice that he has a tough time selling the human beings in the movie and selling their story, and selling the simple story of the human beings that experiences something. So a lot of scenes put together into a movie. This is how it feels like, and this is how movies are made. They're also not made from finish to end. They're made in random order. You film scenes not in random order, but for example, if you use a house, you film all the scenes in that house, and then you go to another house, and then you film all the scenes you need in that house, and then at the end you edit it all together. You actually edit it together while you do the movie, but at the end you spend some weeks on post-production. So how does it all fit together? And in Gandhi it does fit together, because you feel like it's a real guy, you follow him around, and while the scenes are beautifully set up, you still feel like there's a natural progress. You move along in this movie. And Gandhi is sponsored by the Indian state. So what do you get when you make a movie? Hey, Richard Attenborough, there he is, right? This guy. Yeah. But what do you get when you get a state-sponsored movie? Of course, you get pro-state movie. This is what you get with Gandhi. You get a extremely pro-Gandhi movie. A lot of silliness, because I think this is the movie that kind of makes his legacy today, at least in the Western world, because this is what Western people watch and read the anecdotes about Gandhi, and they don't actually understand that, for example, Gandhi was a huge racist in South Africa. Not compared to other people there, but at least he was a racist. That's just how he was against black people. He was hugely pro-Indian and pro-nationalistic, and against Pakistan, for example, being a country. And he's a huge historical figure and really important for India. But again, just attacking England, just attacking the British Empire because they controlled India, it's not always good filmmaking. I like this movie, and also I don't mind white people being the bad guys, not at all. Just go ahead, make them the bad guys. But it's not really true to real history, because in reality, while the British were mean, like a lot of people were back in the day, they actually tried to create a society, and a lot of these things that the British started in India, they're still going on today. There's still a lot of development, and all of this development, at least a lot of it, is based on some of these British ideas that the British gave to the Indians and tried to. They were trying to create a good society. They were also trying to make a lot of money. That's why they were what they are. They were trying to make a society to make a lot of money. But I think what they did was first and foremost a good thing for the Indian people, because the Indian people were always super poor and will always be super poor. That's how it is to be an Indian. It is what it is. But they are getting more richer and richer and richer, and they're trying to be a bit more westernized. So they're trying to take some of our ideas from our capitalist societies and try to implement them. And that's exactly why I think that these kind of movies don't work perfectly, because at least this is not that black and white a movie, but a lot of these Indian movies are. They make or Chinese movies or whatever, they make the white guy, they depict the white guy as a bad guy, at least historically. And I don't think these kind of nationalistic movies can be a bit too much. The greatest war was not amongst the British and the Indians. It was among the Hindu people and the Muslim population. in India, and that's the despicable war with a lot of deaths still today. A lot of deaths, a lot of suffering, needless suffering. That totally shouldn't be there. And what the British did is not something we should be proud of. At least not all of it, but at least they tried to build some kind of society, just like in the Wild West. I'm not proud of Wild West in USA. I'm not proud of that kind of history that went on there. But I think at the end it turned out well. Wizard of Oz, again, silly kids movie. Acting is horrible at times. Judy Garland is just a terrible actress in this. Just really bad. But all the other actors are great, and actually was one of the first movies to use color. A lot. At least one of the big movies that used color, and also daring because it cost a lot. When you use color, you need to have need a lot of film fit together. So you film it in, for example, in black. No, you film it in just random colors. I will mention red, blue, and green or whatever. I can't really remember the colors. I think it was yellow. And then you fit it together so you get the full colorful picture. And when you need that much film, it's really expensive. And film back then was really expensive. So there you can have digital cameras, so it's cheaper. But yeah, when you put that much money into a movie, you need to control every single thing about that movie, and that's what they really did in this movie. Born Ultimatum, shaky cam. Paul Greengrass. I actually like the story. I like Born 2 and 3, but I like the first one the best because it's a simple story, and then it doesn't really jump the shark, but it becomes too unrealistic in the second and third one, because the first one was about a realistic James Bond, so it kind of makes sense, and also was a movie that needed to exist, and was also, I think, the first Bond movie was a huge inspiration for the Craig James Bond, the new one, because it's more realistic and a lot of people want to see it. But this shaky cam, I really hate it. Just forget it. It doesn't really destroy the movie, but nearly destroys. I gave it a 5. So the story holds it together. Yeah, that's all. I think only 50 movies left.